will introduce us. Hi guys, it's Andy from Man City Fan TV, and welcome to this live watch along, really. And it's all about CAS, and the report has finally been published early or late this afternoon. And what we've done is a few of us has managed to read through some of it. I've managed to read through most of it. Probably about 20 pages I've missed, but I've certainly read it in depth in the elements that I have done. Chris is on. Chris has a read through of it. How are you, mate?
I'm all right, mate. It's been a busy day.
It's been a bloody busy day, especially with that coming so late. Would have been good if it was first thing this morning, but it's early morning. I do apologise. I don't normally disturb your sleep, but as soon as the report was published, I did post it to you, and I think I got you up.
Yeah, you did. It was 4 o'clock in the morning, and the phone dinged. I looked at it, and I saw it was the CAS report from you. So I thought I'll wait till the morning, and then I took about 2 minutes and just grabbed my phone and started reading it. I couldn't wait to read it. I just had to know what was being said, and it is massively intense and very in depth. Which I got through 30 pages of it before I came on here. I'll be reading the rest of it properly when I get some time today in Australia to read it thoroughly.
Yeah, well, it's one of those that, like I said, I've been at it for 3 hours. Screenshots of what you'll see is you will see some screenshots of elements that I've highlighted in the report. There will be more. We'll do a more in-depth one on this particular one. That's for certain. Carl, how are you, mate?
I'm well, thank you, gentlemen. I'm well. Good morning, Alan. Good afternoon. Good evening, Andy and Chris. So I got the text at about 11 o'clock this morning, my time, in the middle of meetings, right? So I've been at meetings. I took my lunch break, and I printed it out. I'm reading it. I'm reading every single page, every single
90 pages, yeah.
Right. I'm taking notes and underlining. I'm really digesting, because I like all these legal briefs. I like reading them. It's fascinating, really fascinating about what's happened over the past couple of years in UEFA's case and Stevie's rebuttal. It's great reading. I tell you, great reading. So,
well, I mean, obviously it was published early, well, late. Probably, I'm not sure what time it was. It was probably about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock when it first was announced, and there's been lots of debate on Twitter with journalists, and obviously the journalists have tried to take certain sections that put the city in negative light, focusing on. They pretty much dismiss everything else. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a quick look through what's been published today, and then we'll have a quick chat. So first up, this is it. This is the official report, and what you have here are the arbitrators or the judges. And remember, with regards to this, these people here are independent. Now, if you remember, when we were charged and prosecuted and given the charge of 2 years, and the findings was we were going to be charged €30 million plus a 2-year ban, every journalist, near enough every journalist who wanted to make a comment on this case said, don't forget, these are all independent judges. They're all experts in their own right. You cannot, so what they were trying to do is hedge the bets, going, well, if you get 2 years, independent judges at CAS have given it. If it goes to 1 year, we've still been proven guilty. Independent judges, remember that. That's all they kept saying. Well, don't forget, independent judges have found City not guilty of the charges per se that were brought, the conviction that UEFA gave us. So these are from independent judges. So from the lawyers, these are the lawyers from Manchester City. These were the representatives at the CAS hearing. We've got Paul Harris, QC, Mr. David Casement, QC, Mr. Jean-Cedric Michel, Mr. Massimiliano Maffretti, Mr. Andrea Filiaranti, and Miss Emily Villard. There was also Mr. Jeff Nicholas, Mr. Roderick Thomas, and Mr. Lucas Ferrer. attorney at law from Barcelona. So those were our judges that went into it. Now, the first thing that jumped out to me was this, and I think this is quite prevalent considering the language that has been used by journalists. You can see here in the introduction, it says, following the publication by various news outlets of documents allegedly hacked from MCFC computer systems. This is the introduction to the, CAS hearing. So, first of all, their introduction uses the word hacked. Now, throughout the rest of the document, they do use the word leaked, because that was in basically what the charges were brought by UEFA, and that's the terminology that they use. So, hacked, leaked, from reading what you've read, do CAS actually agree that they were hacked emails? Chris?
Well, they say that they acknowledge that they were, as we called it, criminally obtained, wasn't it? Something like that.
Yeah.
But they said they were still admissible in the proceedings, going off other cases that had done in the past. So, yes, they were hacked, no doubt about that. But yeah, they were part of the evidence that UEFA, well, is the only evidence that UEFA had against us, really.
Alan?
Well, yes, they were hacked, but we knew before we were going in that there was a very, very strong chance that the Swiss court would deem the hacked emails as legal to use in the court case, because it was the whole basis of the investigation. And if that's thrown out, the whole court case would have been thrown out immediately. So it didn't surprise me whatsoever, because they've done it before. So.
Carl?
Yeah, I think the surprise to me was the CAS statement. I think in close paragraph it said that CAS found that the leaked email number 4 is in fact a combination of 2 separate emails. So the manipulation of the data, the core data, to create a false impression, which UEFA, for some reason, presented as evidence against Man City. It's just perfection. I just can't understand that. How
Before we
rest the case of that.
Before we move on the next bit, can you just pop in some headphones or something? Because we're getting a bit of feedback from you there, Carl. Just see if that's any better.
Okay, let me go get the headphones. I'll be back. Okay.
Yeah, no problem, mate.
Yeah.
In the next part, the CAS reason, it says, although the panel has considered all the facts, allegations, legal arguments and evidence submitted by the parties in the present proceedings, it refers in this award only to the submissions and evidence it considers necessary to explain its reasoning. Now, they go on to further expand on that to say that they were part of information that was submitted by both parties that they eventually found to be irrelevant or didn't really want to continue into a tit-for-tat argument over. I think some were admitted by UEFA, some were admitted by City. So they only produced what they felt was relevant to the actual case itself. Now, the first point that they came up with, it says it involves 2 of City's sponsorship partners, Emirates Telecommunications Corporation and Etihad Airways. Etisalat is a major international telecommunications group headquartered in Abu Dhabi, listed on the Abu Dhabi Securities, having bonds listed on the Euronext Dublin as market capitalization of $37 billion. Talks about Etihad being the national flag carrier. It says both Etisalat and Etihad entered into a sponsorship partnerships with City in the 9-10 football season, and those partnerships have evolved and have been renegotiated over the years. Both sponsorship arrangements were entered into for fair value. In any event, the CFTB has not put fair value in issue in these proceedings. So what that's basically saying is that You know, they believe that it was fair. Alan?
Yeah, well, we sort of knew that the argument wasn't about was the value of the FF deal fair and reasonable, because what is someone wants to sponsor you for X amount, what's that got to do with UEFA or CAS or anybody? If someone wants to put them hand in the pocket and sponsor someone for $1 billion, as long as they can afford to pay it, it is full sponsorship. There shouldn't be an issue. And they basically said that is the case. And it was a fair value, because how do you judge what's fair value and what isn't?
I mean, the thing is though, they do have stipulations in their rules and regulations that do talk about it has to be fair and reasonable.
How do you judge that?
Well, on current market values, so they'll look at other clubs and what the sponsorships are they're getting for those. So if the highest club in the world, if the biggest club in the world are getting the highest sponsorship market of, let's say, the Qatar Foundation sponsoring PSG or Barcelona for 500 million, and City say, well, we've got $1 billion. Well, they'll go, well, hold on a minute. The highest is 500 million. You can't put it $1 billion. You might be able to equal it or justify it.
I think that at the time that happened, City were miles above anybody else, weren't they? I think it was 250 million for Arsenal, and City jumped up to 400 million. And even, I'll be honest with you, when I saw that, even I took eyebrows and went, wow, how they got that? You know, it was dramatically higher than anybody else. That's why they've looked.
Yeah, well, I mean, they said at the time they believed at the time it was fair market value. It goes on to say on the 20th of April 2017, the investigatory chamber confirmed that City had complied with the final objective stated in the settlement agreement and could therefore now exit the settlement regime. And this goes back to the original charges, and that was agreed between UEFA and City from the original, when we got the €60 million fine and the player ban and everything else. And City thought that was the end of it, Chris.
Well, yeah, but we never got anything in writing, did we? So I think in the case it was brought up anyway, and that new evidence would have been allowed to be looked at again anyway. That's what Cass said. So there was the time barring stuff, but some of what was alleged against us fell in the right time, even though we disputed that. Cass didn't agree with either City or UEFA on that. So interesting.
It goes on to say, Cass, between right feedback there from somebody, very noisy from my end. Let me just see. I'll move my phone away. Has anybody got any phone near their laptop or anything? No. I might just pop my headphones in because there's a load of feedback.
It's an echo.
Yeah, there is an echo. Okay. I'm still getting feedback, mine. Between the 2nd and 16th of November, a number of articles were published about City by various media outlets. First by Der Spiegel, based on internal documents acquired from City's computer systems by an illegal hack, alleging that City had contravened the CLF FFPR, which was the investigatory part of it. And then this was interesting. The following publications of the New York Times and the Associated Press on the 13th and 14th of May 2019, allegedly containing confidential information related to the investigation that could only have come from members of the investigatory chamber or those assisting them in the investigation. City requested the investigatory chamber to stay the proceedings and investigate the alleged leaking of information by the IC. This request was implicitly denied, and this was in the leaks of the decision when the investigatory chamber issued the referral decision. So again, City were absolutely adamant, Carl, that there were leaks from UEFA's investigatory chamber to it is named later, and you will see it. I don't know whether it comes from this one or is it this one? Yeah. 16th of May and June, the New York Times and the Associated Press and the Sun published about the proceedings between City and UEFA, allegedly containing confidential information related to the proceedings that could only have come from the members of the investigatory chamber or those assisting them in the investigation, or referring to anonymous sources from within the UEFA administration. Now, isn't it interesting, Carl, that the two people in particular who work for those, New York Times and Associated Press, are the ones who've been the biggest vocal individuals on Twitter against Manchester City?
Andy, there's no surprise. This is not surprising to me. To most Americans, it's not a surprise. And no surprise that we're seeing the reaction from that certain media. Again, even the follow-up, right? We've heard about, I think it was Ogden, Mark Ogden, talking about bringing in Rory Smith and others to talk about an impartial view of the case that's unraveled. It's not surprising. It comes from the aspect of the New York Times and their associates who have their own particular agenda from the northeast of the USA. And we know where it's coming from. We all know where the...
It's public information because it's on Twitter. And Mark Ogden actually asked for, and I can name him because it's on Twitter, and I think I've commented below that particular tweet, so it's there for everybody to see. He asked about Martin Ziegler. Surprisingly, within sort of 30 minutes, published a pretty sort of damning tweet about Man City, or a one-sided tweet about Man City. The other was Rob Harris of Associated Press.
Yeah.
And the other was Tariq Panja of the New York Times.
Right.
Is that a coincidence? Right. That I don't know who it was in the Sun, so I don't know who it was from the Sun, but certainly two names there. One who works for the New York Times, one who works for Associated Press, and Mark Ogden in the United States, or working for ESPN, asked Martin Ziegler, notoriously negative against City, Tariq Panja of the New York Times and Rob Harris of Associated Press, for them to give an unbiased view, he claimed, of the cash report.
Well, Andy, I've lost a lot of respect for Ogden. I tried to give him the benefit of doubt, but I've lost respect. But the question should be asked, right? I mean, shouldn't these folks actually pay a charge or be charged with something for misrepresentation of facts, and actually, basically accusing an independent organization in business of falsehoods for months, and now have proven innocent through an independent judge or three independent judges? Shouldn't they be held captive?
Just to make it clear, we are not talking about Mark Ogden, Tariq Panja, Martin Ziegler, or Rob Harris of anything about CAS. I think you might be in reference to what Javier Tebas, Senor Tebas, has said about CAS. He was the one who actually made quite damning statement of CAS. I'm not sure the other journalists.
No, I'm referring to the leaks. I'm referring to the constant innuendo by these journalists about City's guilt.
No, I know. Yeah, that's fine. You were saying CAS about CAS's impartiality.
Okay. About City's guilt, right? Without the presumption of innocence based on facts. And their whole case was based on the fact that there were hacked emails by Rui Pinto, right, who's under criminal investigation in Portugal, I believe, and they used as evidence as a condemnation of guilt upon City. Where's the independent journalistic and integrity in that?
Well, I mean, you've got to suspect that if Rui Pinto has been charged by Portuguese prosecutors for, we believe, hacking Man City's email accounts and servers, why did UEFA's investigatory chamber not question Rui Pinto?
I mean, somebody asked a question: who sponsored this guy to do this? I mean, what's the root cause? If I was a journalist, if I was an independent journalist, I would want to know the source of Rui Pinto's demand or requirement to hack emails. Who sent it?
Do they already know that Rui Pinto's just a fall guy, and there was other individuals or organisations or somebody that is the ones who really hacked the email accounts? I don't know. It's a question me and Kiam I've asked loads of journalists, and not one single person has ever come back and replied to us on it.
There you go. There you go.
Alan?
Yeah, from what you just said before, the whole basis of City not communicating with UEFA and going down the road of the silence routine was purely down to certain people in the investigating committee at UEFA leaking documents and information to the press, because they know the press are going to jump onto anything that's juicy, okay, and they're going to make it negative. But that the information that was leaked from UEFA was quite clearly said it was leaked, and they were concerned about it, like you just mentioned in that document there.
I might bring up, as you're talking, I might bring up some more stuff to get through it.
Yeah, what gets me is it's very simple. What I want to know is which individuals within that investigating committee broke that the confidentiality agreement with investigations, and the people that are responsible within UEFA, are they going to get punished for doing what they did? Because if I was in charge of UEFA, you know, and I found out that certain people from certain clubs had said certain things to the press going against confidentiality, that's a gross misconduct. They should be fired.
Well, it does say on this Article 26 here, it says that on the January 2020, Man City filed a complaint with UEFA's control, ethics and disciplinary body concerning the alleged leaking of information by the investigatory chamber. Don't forget, these proceedings are currently pending. Now, City haven't pursued these. If you read later on in the report, they've not pursued neither of UEFA just yet. But under CAS's, they say, under the CAS report, they're saying these proceedings are still currently pending with regards to who leaked this information and who did the leak to. Now, City might push this depending on what the conversation was between Khaldoon and Stefan.
Well, I think there'll be a compromise on that, to be honest with you. We won't go any further if you back off. But if it wouldn't surprise me if City, you know, there is a Premier League investigation. If someone starts to push it, and the leaks have come from English or British football organisations, we're leaking this information, that can be, you know, that can be used against them. We can't allow that moving forward. That was the reason why City went quiet in January. Because timing, that suddenly they went dead quiet and said, we're not giving you any more information. We'll wait to the CAS case. Actually says that in the document. We'll wait for the CAS case before we give our evidence and also information that you can see. And I don't blame them for that. It's worth getting a €10 million fine for that. Because if we'd have been giving information to them, what's to say it won't be out in the press 2 days later? And then they've got a counter argument against it straight away. So I don't blame City in any way for doing that, even though it was deemed wrong and we got a 10 million fine. I suppose ethics was more prevalent with CAS for that. You know, I can understand why City didn't go any further because they'd lost trust with UEFA completely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just bring up some of the comments from some of the people on. Colin Pollitt says, disappointed with the BBC headline on their sports website. The bias reporting is deep-rooted. Yeah, I did comment on that, Colin, below that, and did say it's about time Man City, as a club, started looking at the likes of Simon Stone and the others who generally report in a very negative way in City, start doing something about it, especially when the BBC, which is a, you know, government-funded organisation, paid for by the taxpayer, start just publishing just all the negativity surrounding the case and nothing to do with the fact that City, you know, won their appeal. Let me just see if there's anybody else made any sort of comments we can put up. Let's just see. Yeah, we've got loads of United fans on tonight.
Of course you did.
Yeah. And we've got loads of Liverpool, and we've got loads of Mahrez fanboys on. Surprise, surprise! Don't worry, they'll be blocked within.
What if you mind me asking? I'm just looking at the comments. Saying, are they changing the mind or not?
No, God, you're joking.
No, they're not.
We've got some on there which are going to be reported immediately to YouTube. So I do apologise that some of the comments again are
ridiculous. What's that got to do with it? What has that got to do with it?
disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. So, guys, if you guys, while we're on, if you can also please, Martin, I don't know whether you're watching, or Chris, or whoever the mods, if you can keep an eye on some of the comments that are on there, we will capture them in our analytics, so we can report them directly to YouTube for those type of comments. Just disgusting, but hence why those type of comments from that fan base and that fan base, every comment from that fan base is being removed from Man City on TV. But on to UEFA. It goes on to say, however, the circumstances of this case are different from the normal run of the cases qualified for the Champions League every year. It goes, an exclusion for 2 seasons will thus be an effective sanction of substantial deterrent effect and be fair to other competing clubs. This was a comment from UEFA as to why they gave the 2 years. I'll come to it later on what they actually said. But Chris and Carl, what are your thoughts on these clubs? We have the clubs that jointly filed the application for intervention were the following. So they filed for it, and that was Arsenal, Burnley, Chelsea, Leicester, Liverpool, Man United, Newcastle, Tottenham, and Wolves. Those were the clubs that actually filed against Manchester City. Carl, come to you first. What are your thoughts on those clubs? We're not surprised about a few of them, but some of them.
I'll give an example of today. So today, a very good friend of mine is a Chelsea fan. We go to our families and friends. We go on vacation. We go on holidays. We travel to Brazil for the World Cup together. He said that he's disgusted with his club because, I mean, the same rules that they benefited from with Abramovich are the same rules and that City played with, and basically his club is writing to UEFA to get City basically thrown out in essence. And he is completely disgusted. He says, who in their right mind, quote, would come against the same system that they benefited from? And this is a Chelsea fan. He has no love for Man City. He's a Chelsea fan. So there's a difference between a lot of fans who are good fans of other clubs and the owners of the clubs who have a vested interest. Now, I can understand Manchester United, Arsenal, Liverpool, even Chelsea. I get that. Okay, fine. But Newcastle, Burnley, Wolves, Leicester City? Are you kidding? Didn't Leicester City pay an FFP fine a couple of years ago for breaching FFP? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So the hateful eight, as they're called, need to take a good look at themselves and figure out where they go from here.
Chris?
Not surprised at all at any of them, mate. I'm more surprised there wasn't more, if I'm honest with you. I think the way football is these days, we are, and I've said this before, City are an island. We're not liked by the teams up there because we're taking their places from the trough, and the teams below us are just jealous, and that's the way it works. And Chelsea thought they were in that castle with the drawbridge up, and that they didn't have to let us, wouldn't let us in. I hope we don't do the same now that we are in that sort of trough as well. I hope we have some integrity. These scumbag owners who don't care about anything more than money, they will do whatever they can to belittle, to besmirch, whatever you want to call it, and to weaken their opponents. I'm not surprised by any of it at all. I mean, the likes of Burnley, and it's a bit laughable, and I don't mean that horrible to Burnley fans, but Burnley, they're never going to be competing for Europe. Once Sean Dyche leaves, that's the end of Burnley. They will do what Charlton did when they got rid of Kirbishley, and what happened at other clubs when they've got rid of a manager been there for a long time. They'll fall. And that's what will happen unless they get major investment. Burnley won't get it because they're too small.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I did chat to, I DM'd Magpie Channel, and I went, "Oh God, this is not looking good for your club. Actually, you must be embarrassed." And then, hey, listen, it's not us as fans; it's our owner that says it all. And I went, "I know," but in the City fans' eyes, I think 90% of City fans were pleased that you could possibly be being taken over by a rich owner, and try and break through the cartel clubs with us and everything else. But unless they see through that, I reckon a lot of those City fans who were in support of Newcastle are probably going to turn the other way. And they went, "It's our owner, it's not us, honestly." And I said, "No, I know, I understand. I do understand that." So I just want to put that out there that I have chatted to Magpie Channel, and they were saying it's the owner, it's certainly not the fans. Alan, you want to quickly say something?
Yeah, I just want to quickly say about the hatred of eight clubs. It's not their fans. It isn't their fans that have done this and sent letters in. It's all to do with getting the case heard quickly so they can get another place in Europe. So if you look at Chelsea, they were fighting for 5th at that point with Man United, so I can understand that. Arsenal were on the edge of it at that time, so they've done it for the same reasons. I don't understand why Newcastle got involved, but it is their owners that have complained because they wanted to circumvent place in Europe for teams within that European belt, Europa and Champions League side. And it isn't the fans, so I don't blame any of the club's fans for that in any way. It is their owners that have written that one.
Okay. Martin is joining us. Sorry, mate, it's a bit late, but how you doing, mate? You all right? Huh?
Is my connection any good?
Yeah. How's quarantine?
Yeah, no, his connection's rubbish. Before we go there. Moving on from that, it says on the 3rd of April 2020, the CAS Court Office informed the 9 Premier League clubs that no application for a stay of execution of the appeal decision had been filed and that their application for intervention was therefore moot. So actually, the 9 Premier League clubs, those 9 who had actually made an application for no application for a stay of execution, they actually informed those clubs that City had in fact not filed for it. So therefore, there's no need for an intervention. But quickly, the Football League's documents, it says first, City should be ordered to produce complete, accurate and unredacted copies of all the Football League's documents, i.e. all of the emails and documents. And then they list these 7 emails. It is beyond question that these documents exist and that they are relevant to this case. Indeed, and remember, this is the what UEFA said to CAS as to their points on the Football Leagues. They said, indeed, they are at the core of this case. They are at the core of this case. I'm just trying to see if I can bring up next. City said, in the context of the criminally obtained documents, that's the wording, Chris, the adjudicatory recognised why City had declined to make any formal admissions that such documents were authentic. As noted in the appeal brief, City accepted that for the purposes of the proceedings before the CFCB, it was prepared to address the contents of the criminally obtained documents as if they were genuine, without prejudice to its position as to their authenticity and or admissibility. City is willing to proceed on the same basis for the purpose of the appeal. Okay, so City were prepared to let them go with the points that they wanted to review. Now, remember these parts here. This is really important. This is very, very important. This is the purpose of seeking to ensure a timely resolution of this appeal. City is willing to proceed as follows in relation to the evidentiary request. Request 1. On the 18th of May, City would provide to UEFA and the CAS panel copies of the published emails referred to in paragraph 626 of UEFA's answer. together with copies of the original versions of the corresponding emails. Request 2. The requested documents are not to be produced for the reasons mentioned above. Request 3. City would provide to UEFA and the CAS panel an unredacted copy of the payment ledger extract without prejudice to the City's position that the parts of the ledger that were previously redacted do not fall within the scope of the matters referred to the AC as set out in the terms of reference. And then 4 would be City would provide to UEFA and the CAS panel further details regarding the identity of who X was. The above would be provided, and then it goes on to say, UEFA has taken note and appreciates the appellant's at City's comments regarding UEFA's evidentiary requests. The deadline indicated the 18th of May 2020 is acceptable. UEFA has taken note of the objection by City to comply with UEFA's evidentiary request number 2, based, among other things, on timing reasons. In this regard, UEFA respectfully makes the following comments. Under the applicable law, each party bears the burden to prove the facts that alleges blah, 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 blah. City has made its appeal several new arguments and it's filed some documents. UEFA notes that City has decided which documents or other evidence it wishes to produce. UEFA's reply to this: UEFA does not wish to make the current procedure more complicated than necessary. It's also to be reminded that there is a general undisputed interest that the present appeal procedures shall be concluded by a reasoned CAS award no later than the 10th of July. In its last letter, City has agreed to this. For these reasons, UEFA does not see any need to insist on its evidentiary request number 2 and is satisfied to proceed with the case on the basis of City's comments in relation to other evidentiary documents. To avoid any possible doubt by not maintaining its request number 2, UEFA does not recognise the existence or non-existence of any of the documents that were the objects of request number 2. So, basically, they've set out 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the evidentiary documents they want from the leaked articles, blah, 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 blah. And remember, what they did say in the previous thing that I said, if you read the bottom part, it is beyond question that these documents exist and that they are relevant to this case. Indeed, they are at the core of this case. So why then, after City said, okay, we'll produce what you've requested, but then they said, well, this has to be concluded, CAS, by the 10th of July, because obviously we've got a Champions League competition coming up and we need to make sure that this is done. All right, I'll tell you what, because of that, if you make sure it's done by the 10th of July, we won't have to go into it, because City said, well, if you want all of the emails and you want all of the evidential documentary evidence and you want to call witnesses, there's no way in a million years we can conclude this by the 10th of July. It's just impossible. So what do UEFA do? All right, I'll tell you what, that evidence that is at the core of our case, which is what they stated to UEFA, they then say, oh, now drop that, because we want a decision by the 10th of July, because we've got to do this Champions League draw and we've got to make sure that it doesn't have a knock-on effect. Huh? Is that not contradictory? If you had your biggest piece of evidence that is the core of your appeal to CAS as to why City should be prosecuted, why, for the sake of the date, would you drop that for the sake of doing a Champions League draw and everything else? Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's like going, O.J. Simpson case. Oh, we've got the knife, but we've got witnesses that saw him buy this and use this in 15 parts, and he was having it in his hand. Yeah, no, but that's going to take us ages to bring the witnesses in. Oh, I'll tell you what, drop that. Don't matter. We need the decision by this day. It's like, it's madness. It's absolute madness.
Andy, and that's what I said from day one. This is absolute incompetence. It just listen, part of what we do, I mean, I have an MBA, right? So what we do legal studies in the MBA class. We do law and business.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. The core of your case, the case, the point at which your whole case rests on, you're willing to dismiss that to pursue a time bar, if you would. because of the competition, you have to start again in August or July. It just is incredible.
Chris?
It's incredible.
Look, UEFA, I think City have what they've done wrong here at City was not to comply with UEFA when we were going through the. And UEFA weren't given things that they really wanted till much later on in the proceedings. So City were playing a game, not because they'd done anything wrong, they were just messing UEFA around. And then when UEFA became aware of what the evidence was, it was like, oh shit, we got nothing here. Let's just drop it. That's how it looks like. I mean, Cass pretty much says it, and they're quite polite about it in the way they sum things up. But it basically saying what UEFA had was a load of old shite.
Yeah. Alan, you want to say something?
Yeah, I did. You've got to look at the reasons behind all this. And I think I'm still convinced the reason why UEFA ended up going and agreeing to go to CAS and giving City a 2-year ban in the first place was constant pressure of the cartel. Okay? And every single club demanded that City got a fine and a ban, no matter what the evidence was, because they believed that those emails were damning against City to believe in those emails. And I remember when the actual 2-year ban came out, we all couldn't believe at the length of it. When we all thought, well, if we're going to get banned, it'd be only 1 year or a heavy fine, and it was 2 years. And I'm convinced that the cartel have demanded that they give them that sort of sentence, and then when they're going to court, the only way UEFA are going to come out of this looking like they've done the right things was agreed to go to court with City to face, even though they knew, and they probably underneath this knew they haven't got a leg to stand on, but it indicates them because they've done all the cartel.
Alan, it begs the question. I mean, from a simple guy, right? Think about it. If I'm the UEFA and my role is to manage, help, protect, grow the game across Europe, right? And I see alleged evidence that you have falsified accounts. Shouldn't I ask you and say, hey guys, can you show us the evidence to make sure we don't have this rumor goes away and we can jointly go to the press and say this was not correct? I tell you there's something behind that's not correct, Alan.
But Carl, it's a classic case of the tail wagging the dog. Yeah.
But that's not unusual. You know, when before the Premier League came along, there was 5 big clubs, trying to negotiate with London Weekend Television a package where they would be shown on telly most of the time. And from that came the Premier League, because they were threatening to leave the first division and do their own breakaway thing. And this is how they achieve things. It's not, it's just done through threats. And, all they're interested in is taking the majority of the money. They don't care about the little clubs. That when the Premier League came in, whereas the TV money went throughout the whole of the leagues, it remained in the Premier League. So now you have this massive difference from clubs trying to get into the Premier League and they really struggle, or you have a great manager who manages to keep you in for a few seasons. This is what it's all about. It's naive to think that UEFA are these people who are going to do things fairly because they're bullied, and that is basically what the likes of the teams like Arsenal.
The whole thing's proven to me that the cartel run UEFA, because the biggest giveaway of all was when the verdict came out from CAS, the reaction from the clubs within the cartel, to it. That tells me that they wanted and demanded UEFA, and they're angry with UEFA for not being able to do it. So that tells me is that the pressure that UEFA have been under purely down to the cartel. So in English terms, Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester United, who are part of that cartel, have put humongous amounts of pressure on not only English clubs to sign that letter, but also with the help of Real Madrid and Tabas and all these people, are putting humongous amounts of pressure on UEFA to sanction us. And when that sentence came out, and we were proved innocent, they've gone ballistic. You saw the reaction.
Yeah, well, I'm just for the sake of moving this on, because there's still a few things we need to quickly go through. This part here, for those who can watch it back, it's just really about UEFA do not wish to make the current procedure more complicated, which was what we were talking about. Then it went on to say, this case is by far the most serious breach of the regulations to have been referred to the adjudicatory chamber, taking into account, in particular, the seriousness, repetition, and intentional nature of the conduct. The fair and proportionate sanction in this case must result in disciplinary measures by exclusion and a fine, substantially in excess of those previously imposed in order to protect the integrity of the UEFA club competition. Right. So remember, it is the most serious repetition and intentional nature of the conduct that they've ever faced in their whole life. Yet they said, wherever it was, that these 7 articles is beyond question at the core of this case. Yet they say in this article, I'll tell you what, it don't matter. Don't worry about it. So this is so serious, the biggest thing they've ever faced in their lifetime, yet they'll dismiss the thing that they say is at the core. Why not just say, tell you what, you're in the 2021 Champions League. We're going to continue this investigation into next season, and we'll conclude everything, and we will charge you with everything, and you will face 2, maybe even 5 years out of the competition. If it is that serious, at the core of everything, it's absolute garbage. It really is. Cass says, by comparing the leaked emails with original documents, it transpired that the leaked emails were mainly selected parts of emails from which certain information has been deleted, such as additional text, the names of the persons added in a carbon copy, and the dates. It is, however, true that the leaked emails number 4, i.e. an email that was sent by Mr. Pearce to Mr. Camillus on the 29th, is in fact a combination of 2 emails. Although this gives a somewhat distorted impression, the panel finds that it did not affect the veracity of the leaked emails on which UEFA primarily based their case. So they even in CAS admitted that they were 2 emails put together to form one. That in itself is phenomenal. Considering all these elements, the panel finds that the balance clearly sways in favour of the interest of discerning the truth at the expense of Man City's personality rights that are not violated by using publicly available evidence in arbitration procedure. Consequently, although the evidentiary value of the leaked emails will be assessed in more detail below, the panel finds that the leaked emails comprise admissible evidence. So even though they've admitted that there are emails that have been put together to form a statement, still allowed them, and City didn't challenge it. They then went on to say, if any violation is determined to be committed, what is the appropriate sanction? Did the CFCB breach its obligation to due process? And if so, what are the consequences? So the CAS findings said the majority of the panel finds that City cannot be prosecuted on the basis of financial information that was first submitted at a point in time that lies outside the limitation period, because this would artificially extend the 5-year limitation period to a limitation period of 6 or even 7 years without a clear legal basis to do so. Indeed, if the reasoning of the UEFA were followed, the limitation period could be open-ended, because if it was considered appropriate to prosecute a club on the basis of information concerning reporting period, T2, this information would in turn contain financial information of a reported T2 in such year as maybe, T4.
Yeah.
It says that it doesn't agree with the adjudicatory statement that in the absence of any evidence produced by the club, the leaked emails are direct evidence that the arrangements were made and implemented. City is not charged for attempting to disguise equity funding as sponsorship contributions. It is charged for erroneous reporting of financial information, which requires a completed act. Accordingly, it's for UEFA to prove that the arrangements discussed in the leaked emails were as they appear to be and were indeed executed.
Executed. Yeah.
And that's the main thing here. There are some of the these are the final findings, and then we'll just let's just show the final findings, and then we can finish off with your thoughts. These are the final findings. There's a few of them. The majority of the panel finds that UEFA's main charges, i.e. providing incorrect information to UEFA with respect to having received disguised equity funding through Etisalat and Etihad, must be dismissed. Any alleged wrongdoing of City with respect to the Etisalat payments is time-barred. Any alleged wrongdoing of City with respect to the Etihad payments is partially time-barred and, in any event, not established to the comfortable satisfaction of the panel. That said, the panel is of the view that UEFA by no means filed frivolous charges against City. As also acknowledged by City, there was a legitimate basis to prosecute City, but based on the evidence of the file, the panel finds that it cannot reach the conclusion that disguised equity funding was paid to City by Sheikh Mansour or His Highness and the Abu Dhabi United Group through Etihad. The conclusion panel, based on the foregoing, after taking into account due consideration, the panel finds that the CFCB did not breach any obligations of due process and that any alleged breaches are in event cured by the de novo effect of appeals. And it goes into alleged breaches related to financial statement are not proven. The alleged breaches related to break-even information submitted, monitoring process time barred, but the alleged breaches to the break-even information submitted, monitoring process are not. And then it goes on, panel finds, appropriate fine of 10 million is imposed on City. It's ordered to be paid by City to UEFA in the appeal decision, and as compensation for the CFCB's legal costs is confirmed. So basically, it came out with the fact that the main issues resolved by the panel are: did the CFCB breach its obligations of due process, and if so, what are the consequences thereof? Does the conclusion of the settlement agreement in 2014 and the release therein bar UEFA from charging City? Are the charges against City time barred? Are the leaked emails authentic, and do they compromise inadmissible evidence? What is the applicable standard of proof? Did City disguise equity funding? And did City fail to cooperate with the CFCB? Well, as we know, City were cleared of the two charges, but City were charged €10 million for failing to fully cooperate. But as we've seen from before, the evidence in the cash report, the reasons why City decided that enough was enough after all the leaked emails by somebody at, even though Cass said we don't think it's anyone at UEFA. Well, I don't know who it was. It must be amazing that maybe somebody hacked. Maybe Rui Pinto from his prison cell hacked UEFA's CFCB computer servers and managed to find out all this information. But it is ironic that the New York Times and the Associated Press seem to have these, and they quoted The Sun as well, how they had all this information, because it certainly didn't come from City. Carl, finally, go on, mate. We can wrap this up, and Carl, you can have your comments on the whole thing.
Yeah, very quick. There are three things that you just ran through very quickly. One is standard of proof, right? To prosecute the case, you must have a high bar, which wasn't met. Yeah. The other thing is the executed, not executed. So basically what it means is, have you watched the movie Minority Report with the Tom Cruise, where a person is charged for thinking about a crime, not executing a crime. So allegedly, right, what Cass is saying is that even though they may have, if they have written something on paper or an email, it wasn't executed. You can't charge a person for not executing whatever they wrote, and there's no evidence for that.
Well, remember. I think I've not shown you. Obviously, there is tons of stuff here, but I think the figures were 5,500,000 emails. Yeah, I remember right. 5.5 million emails. They brought 7 emails apparently that were published in Der Spiegel, and these were the 7 things that they went on. And Cassie even proved that 2 of those emails were put together in one.
Right. And then the last thing was time barred. So going back, looking at evidence from their own statute of limitations is beyond that. So it's just incredible that they will bring this case. But to Alan's point, there's something behind. There's more behind this than we know. It's not just UEFA. It's something behind this is driving them, and that needs to be asked.
Well, we've asked it. We've asked it as a channel on Twitter. We've asked journalists on Twitter. We've copied in loads of journalists. We've still yet to have one single reply. Now, normally you might get the stop talking garbage, blah, blah. Not a single reply. And with me and Kiam have said it on 2-3 occasions. Not one. No reply. Chris?
Yeah, I see there's a couple of comments being made about not understanding the time barring issue. And I really implore you to go and read the CAS report. I know it's a long read, but within it will explain to you what was time barred and what wasn't. City had a date that they thought it was. UEFA had a date. And I believe CAS had their own interpretation of when the date should have been.
Yeah, there was a lot of discussion over that date, wasn't there, in the report?
Yeah.
It was...
Yeah, but despite
it was about when you are charged or when you start the initial investigation. The whole thing fell down really for UEFA was because they said, well, the date only starts when we prosecute somebody, and CAS actually investigated some statute law that said, well, no, in fact, if you open an investigation into somebody, the time starts because you're implying that you're investigating somebody for an offence. So the time starts when you start the investigation. And this is where all the confusion came from.
I think
City's lawyers did a good job.
They did a great job. And I think it's really interesting to go and read CAS's, the really long bits with their outcome, because they pretty much said, as far as I'm concerned, that even though some of the time barring stuff, that there was no evidence in the emails to say that what we said what happened.
Yeah.
There was a payment of 59 million went in and an 8 million. Now UEFA alleged that the 59 million was coming from ADUG or Sheikh Mansour, and the 8 million came from Etihad. But whereas I don't know if it was the CEO of Etihad, but somebody right at the top of Etihad in his evidence said no, 8 million came from our marketing budget and the other 59 million came from our central funds. So what UEFA were basically basing all their evidence on was that Sheikh Mansour or ADUG are putting money in through Etihad and from Etisalat, and CAS have said there is no evidence that says that. Our ledger doesn't say that's happened. And that has been audited by Deloitte and by Ernst & Young, is it? There's a lot of really positive things, and why, as supporters, we should really be very positive about the people who own our club.
Which
they are decent people.
I think there is a comment in there by Cass. It's almost intimating that if UEFA think that City have cut the books, even though they've gone through, providing all of this documentary evidence to the FA, to the Premier League, and to all of these chartered accountants and everything else, big, massive companies, then are you implicating the likes of Deloitte and Ernst Young and everybody?
Exactly.
Are you saying they're corrupt as well?
Yeah.
That's what they're basically saying.
Yeah. And the way that CAS sort of summed up their feelings on the people who gave evidence was very positive for City.
Yeah, it was.
People who gave evidence and basically called UEFA out for, basically saying that they were lying. Are you saying they're lying? It was really. My whole thing about this, my gut feeling about this all along has been it's a witch hunt. I've read through the whole thing. It still seems to me like a witch hunt, but I think that witch hunt is will still go on, mate. Unfortunately. We're dealing with a load of bullies, mate. And what bullies do is they surround themselves with other wannabe, and that's what these clubs are doing, right? And that they're just employing playground tactics to try and bully City. Fortunately, we've got very good owners and people at the top dealing with us. So I'm pretty proud of my club and the way they've dealt with it. I know they could have probably dealt with UEFA a bit. You didn't have to get the £10 million fine, but I firmly of the belief that City felt that UEFA weren't going to listen to them anyway, and that there was a kangaroo court, so they will take their chances at CAS. And I think,
I think it came out in the report as well. It was almost like City intimated that they didn't want to implicate themselves anymore for any more twisting of information that would have been released to these media outlets. So anything they said could possibly have been leaked to AP, New York Times, The Sun, and that whole thing could have been twisted, which would have then impacted on City's reputation, and publicity, which was publicity being one of the words that have been, City didn't want this damaged. And hence why they went, well, it's a buy-off. We can either give you all of this and you're going to leak this straight to the media. They're going to twist it like they have done all along, and we're going to come out of it looking really bad. And that will affect our investment around the world, our sponsors, everything else. So I'll tell you what, we're not giving any more information. Bugger to you. And I think if they come out with it with a €10 million fine, they'll be quite happy, because over the many years now that this has been ongoing, this witch hunt, they've earned how many times more than €10 million in advertising and everything else. So prudent move, clever people, know what they're doing. I think, like you said, it's not going to stop.
No, listen, we were talking about earlier. Go on, I was just going to say. Go on.
Until we find out who actually paid Rui Pinto or someone to hack those emails, because it might not have been Rui Pinto, but whoever is at the source of making sure that those emails were hacked, they're the culprits, and who they are, who knows. But until we find that out, this isn't going to stop. This isn't going to stop.
Just on the journalists, Andy, I know his impartiality towards City went out of the window once we started challenging for the top four.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Gotcha.
And there's a reason for that. Before those times, before Sheikh Mansour came here, people used to laugh at us, or they used to laugh with us, right? Because we were this big club. All right, we're not a massive club, but we're this big club who kept on messing up, and we laughed at it, right? And they laughed at us. And we were seen as this friendly club, but now that we
were most people's second club, weren't we?
Yeah, exactly. But this smear campaign, the witch hunt smear campaign, will continue, and we've just got to deal with it as fans, knowing that we've got great owners, and I'm very proud of them for what they've done.
Yeah. So am I, Alan.
All I'll say to at the end of it, they've managed to prove where the money came from the central fund and the marketing department. Yeah, and that proves our innocence. That was the charge. That was the charge we dealt with. The non-cooperation, we knew we'd have to take that on the chin. But I sort of understood why City did what they did for that. But moving forward, we can't deal with what's going to happen in the past now. Moving forward, I'd like to see City's owners, employ a corporate governance person that makes sure that anything we do moving forward, anything, even if it's little things, goes through this person before we do it. Because if we don't do that, we are open to criticism or more charges. Because trust me, UEFA will keep on looking and looking and looking. Well, not, I shouldn't say the cartel will keep looking and looking until they do us. And the same will happen to Newcastle when they get taken over, and they will look and look and look and look, because they don't like people standing on their toes. But to Chelsea, where they took a 12-month ban for signing new players, which got kicked out by gas halfway through the season. And it's happened to PSG, kicked them out when they invested. Every club that have tried to jump into this cartel have all been prosecuted at some stage. And moving forward, City need to be whiter than white, and they need to make sure the people at the top of City need to make sure someone that can do that.
Well, I mean, I'd also, somebody just mentioned there, I think it was Centurions, and said, I'll bring back, my question is, what's the relationship between Man City and the UEFA in the future? I don't know, but I would love to have been a fly on the wall in that conversation between Khaldoon and Seferin, and see what really was said in that particular conversation, if one did actually happen. Good point about governance, corporate governance there. I'd be surprised if City haven't. Whether they need somebody new, I don't know. But I'd like somebody to come in a governance point of view to look at the media. I really would. So I do think City should just stop this. Oh, you know, we need to be nice to everybody because of our image. I want us to stop that.
Yeah.
I want us to absolutely stop that approach because we've tried it now for 10 years.
I think there's one thing.
Last 6 to 8 years, let's say, we've tried it. Since we won the league, that's when we've really had all the shit. So for the last 8 years, we took shit off media outlets, the ones who only support clickbait, support the clickbait clubs, the ones that are giving drives to their sites and everything. We know what's happening with journalism now. We know what's happening with media outlets. They're having to switch from, you know, paper copies to internet-based social media to get their clicks and views, and all they do. We've seen it tonight. I mean, we have seen a classic example on Twitter tonight of journalists posting stuff and websites, organizations posting stuff just purely to get clicks. That is all they've done it for. Because if they really believed what they're writing, then my lord, football is definitely not for them. Really isn't. So I would hope that Manchester City finally, when we've had these bollocks to actually take on UEFA full time and win, bring somebody in who is, from a legal perspective, looking at defamation of character and these comments that are made against us, and really go hard on them. It's funny that there was a shot across the bow from when Spitty came out 10 days ago, making all these comments about City. Funny, isn't it? His last actual comment about City was just pro this, pro that, great this, that, because they were warned. Sky Sports were warned that City were looking at it seriously, and he'd obviously had a word in his ear that if you want to keep your job, you're going to have to rectify this situation, otherwise. And suddenly, in glowing terms, he's all about David Silva and about City, and blah 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 blah. So it just shows you if City. I mean, I'm not talking about being snowflakey. I'm talking about if there is real stuff that is real defamation of character on the club itself, City should be stamping down on it. And I think a lot of City fans feel that way. And I don't think we do it as a club enough. I really don't. I mean, allowing some of the absolute shitholes of journalists who walk into that press room and are allowed to ask questions of the greatest manager in world football. The likes of Harris, who asks him disgusting questions about, has he been taking money from dodgy accounts and stuff? I'd never allow that twat anywhere near the City, the Etihad or the CFG ever again. You know,
Ferguson, wasn't it? And
Ferguson had the right idea. He banned the BBC and everything because of what they did, whether it was right or wrong, but he banned them. And do you ever hear a negative article from the BBC talking about Sir Alex Ferguson ever again? No. Never. And he still banned them. So City need to employ somebody who deals with these journalists and actually, and if they're making fair, objective comments and articles, fine. I've got no problem with City. You know, somebody having a real, where's the evidence, and this is good, and this is my opinion, and blah, blah, blah. But the shit they write is just appalling. It really is appalling. Carl?
No, Andy, I agree with you. Everything you said is what I've been moaning about with my family for weeks and months about, you know, one thing I respected about Sir Alex was what he did with the media, right? When you're a champion, even Pep says a champion has to be arrogant in some form or format. We need to really address this media putridness, if you would, against us, because it doesn't help anyone. It's not good journalism. You don't consume good media. If you're critical of the club, sure, be critical of the club, but be factual, be objective. Don't just spout off fanzine articles that mean nothing to anyone except for clickbaits from other fans from other clubs.
But that's the problem, isn't it? That's what it is. It's clickbait. You know, papers don't sell that much these days. To get read, you need to be putting out these sensational sort of headlines to bring in your Liverpool fans and your Man United fans. I'm not just talking about in this country. I'm talking about worldwide. They're the big audience they're trying to hold on to, and this is the same for Sky. They want Liverpool and United at the top, so they sell more dishes. You know, UEFA want Man United and Liverpool at the top because they bring in more money than we do. That's just the way of it. It all revolves around money.
Yeah, absolutely it does. I'm just going to see if there's any more comments in here.
I've not seen any reports this morning of the newspapers, obviously, because I've just woken up. But I'll be reading them today when you're all asleep to see what crap they've been writing, because they will write crap.
I just had this Daniel. I don't know Daniel or whoever Daniel is, but I just had a DM conversation with Duncan Castles on Twitter, trying to understand his take on all of this. One of two. Two. He said, one, time barred is an issue to start with. If you break the rules, you break the rules. Well, the rules are if it's time barred, it's time barred. So, I mean, that's a rule as well. So, I mean, make your mind up. If you examine the documents, you may see there is an issue over why evidence was time barred. Yeah, we've looked at the evidence on that. That's nonsense. We've already looked at that. We've just discussed it, actually, about the fact that one had one date, one had the other. The difference being is that I think UEFA stated that the time starts when they prosecute, and City proved that in a court of law, it's when the investigation starts into a particular club, organisation, etc. CAS looked at the evidence, the legal evidence, and said they agreed with Manchester City that in a court of law, if once you start the investigation into somebody, that's when the time starts. So that's what Duncan Castles is going on about, which is, you know, he needs to go and read it himself if he thinks that that's wrong, because that's exactly what it states in there. And CAS actually said in the report that UEFA should look at their wording and terminology when it comes to that type of thing, when it comes to time bar issues. So we did cover that earlier. Iona Beat says, main leagues in Europe, Bayern 8 years running, Juventus 9 years running, PSG 7 titles in 8 years, Barcelona, Real Madrid 9 titles over the past 10 years. Financial fair play, my arse. That's fun. Daniel says, still doesn't explain much. I'm trying to understand what specific allegations was time barred. Just said it there, mate. It doesn't really matter about the specific allegations. It's down to the dates on it. On what we're saying, there is a slight crossover with one or two things, but if it would have been allowable, CAS would have allowed it. Daniel says, Andy, thanks a million for trying to get journalists on here to discuss with you. It would be so beneficial for all of us to hear from one who believes in all honesty that we are guilty. Well, tried it, mate. There's only one. I did contact Jonathan Northcroft earlier, but I know he's busy at the moment. But I did say to him that at some point it'd be good if we could sit down. I've invited so many journalists on. They're more than welcome to come on. If they want to come on Man City Fan TV and they want to put their arguments forward, absolutely fine. All they've got, they know, most of them know my Twitter account. Now, all they need to do is, well, say most of them, the likes of Delaney and everything have blocked me. But the ones who like to argue, Rob Harris, fine. Rob Harris, if you want to come on Man City Fan TV. Martin Ziegler, if you want to come on. If you want to discuss this and highlight where you think CAS have been wrong, and remember, we're talking about 3 independent judges that all the journalists said beforehand. They made a point. These are independent judges. So whatever City get, we have to accept. Well, we got nothing. And a €10 million fine for, pissing the investigation off. So you have to accept the fact that CAS are found in City's favour and not UEFA's. Any final things before we go? We've got a thank you very much. Kennards Blue, £4.99. Yeah, thank you. Super chat. Good work, lads. Happy to support this channel. Would love to be involved more in chats like this. You're more than welcome anytime you want to, mate. Roberto Blondy's on at last. Hello, where have you been? Governing body bringing time-barred rules into this, knowing these time-barred rules issues no longer matter, shows that they simply knew they would lose, needed a cloud of conspiracy to hide their hunt. Yeah, good point. Good point. Daniel come back with, my take on all of this is the American owners, United, Arsenal, Liverpool, are being forced to spend money on their squads due to CFG's carefree spending. It drives them barking mad.
It does.
Well,
it does. Yeah, you can tell.
Well, listen, what's it going to do if we spend 300 million this summer? Bring it on.
They'll all go absolutely mad if we do that.
Hey, well, Julian Santos, I really like how Guardiola has spoken out against clubs that did as dirty like Arsenal. Shows character as they tried to tarnish our reputation. Burnley, we will see you on the pitch. Yeah, we might only have one more year.
Do you know what would be nice? All the hatred eight, as I call them, all their board of directors and executives that come to sit in the directors' box next year in the Etihad when the is we'll make them sit with the away fans and they're not allowed in the director's box.
Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah,
Anyone know a good private detective for Elizabeth Salander type person? I'm sure there are some. I'm sure we can raise a fund. I'm sure we can do a GoFundMe page where we can find somebody to find out who is really behind these hacked documents.
What about that guy that did the UEFA investigation? That guy with the anorak that did the documentaries. Get him to do it.
It could do.
Yeah.
Just finally, before we go, Spitty shouldn't even have a job, fam. He should have. Sky Sports is 9% United focus, absolutely sickening. Lankow, thank you very much, Lankow. He gives us a super chat. Loving the content on the channel recently, guys, regarding all the cast stuff and everything else on the channel. Keep up all the great work. Thank you so much, mate. Really do appreciate that. Excellent. Daniel says, did you guys notice the Daily Mail changed the wording on their City headline today? This morning it was guilty, then hours later they changed it to exonerated. I didn't see that, I must admit. I've been out this afternoon. The high position members of the old elite clubs now working in UEFA forced this farce. Media journals have a full-on partisan love for their clubs, and City are the knife through their butter. Very good. I agree with this, Andy. Too many clickbait journalists need to ban many from the press conference. Yeah, I agree. We've got, hey, who's that handsome chap? Oh, look at him. Has he got? Oh yeah, it must be. Yeah, has he got a tan there? No. That must have been. No, that must have been. That's pre-Tenerife. That.
He's looking slim there.
That's 2004.
Oh God.
Clickbait ban then. Thank you, Martin. Martin is back from Tenerife now. Hope you enjoy. Yeah, he won't be looking like that after the McDonald's he's eating tonight.
It's a shame he couldn't join us, really, isn't it?
Well,
it's taken him an hour and 20 minutes to get through whatever McDonald's he bought.
I know. Well, I tried to bring him on, but he was like Norman Collier. I think he tried to come up a few times, but I think he has apologised that his Wi-Fi's gone down. His Wi-Fi's missed him and is sulking. He's been away for 2 weeks.
He's been trying to wind me up about Gordon Gecko all bloody day, and a year and a half ago.
Well, I must admit, you did look like Gordon Gecko on that. I've got no idea what you were wearing and where you were with that one.
That was in the Etihad against the Tottenham game last year.
Was it?
It was in the.
It was last year. I thought it was 1984.
No, it was last year.
All right, okay. Yeah. Lankow said it must be a good McDonald's then. Oh, he's getting some grief now, isn't he? Right, guys, listen. This is Andy from Man City Fan TV. That's the end of the cast overview. We probably will do some more on this. Like I said, challenge to you guys, the journalists out there. If you want to come on and discuss it in a fair, open way, and you want to put your points across to us on the channel and disagree with us, fight your corner, we'll fight ours. More than in a nice way.
I'm just reading a comment from Martin. Can someone get some dress sense? Oh, you thank you later.
What's he put?
He said, "Can someone get Alan some dress sense?" He's just put on the thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there you go. Alan looked like Boise from Only Fools and Horses.
Marlene. Marlene.
Oh, way up, Mingy Wong. Martin's gaining weight. Yeah, well, he is. God knows how much he's gained after eating, 2 hours of McDonald's. But anyway,
I'm on rocking the 70s. Look, when he was 45.
listen. What's that? Oh, Mark Keam says Martin talking about dress sense with those pink shorts.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, listen, like I said, journalists, if you want to come on and discuss it in an adult way, you're more than welcome to do it. But I want to say massive thank you to Chris for coming on, mate. Thanks for your input.
No worries, mate. You take care.
Yeah, you too. Alan, I know it's early. I know I got you up very early. I do apologise.
All right, no worries.
That's Martin's job. It's not mine.
No worries. I wanted to read it anyway.
No probs. Carl, thank you. I know you've gone over it. Carry on reading it, mate. I'm sure we'll be having more discussions on this over the coming days, and hopefully, fingers crossed, the journalists might come on, and whether it's pro City or whether it's against City, and you think that you want to shoot us down and say no, City were guilty of this one, then fine. Bring the evidence. Let's discuss it. Absolutely open to that. And if a couple of you want to come on, well, we'll bring a couple from our end, and it'll be 2 versus 2. Or we might bring 5 versus 5. Who knows? Yeah, we've got plenty who'll back us up on the evidence. But anyway, this is Andy from Man City Fan TV. I want to say a massive thank you for all the comments. We've had well over 100 people commenting, so I do really appreciate it. Roberto Belondi says, thank you, Chris, Alan, Carl, and Andy. Great stuff. Thank you very much, mate. Do appreciate it. Julian Santos says, what about Liverpool? What about them? Yeah. Are they behind it? Somebody said, who knows? But anyway, don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell icon. Make sure your settings are set to public, not private. And go over and watch the videos that we've done. Loads of videos. There's all the interviews post-match of the Norwich game and everything else. But we'll be back this week. Martin is now back. He's in quarantine for 2 weeks. So I'm sure Martin, or is supposed to be in quarantine for 2 weeks. I'm sure Martin will be back with you guys most days, giving you loads of videos, giving me a rest for the last 2 weeks. But anyway, he's had a great holiday. He is back in the UK now. But anyway, take care. Thank you again for all your comments. We do appreciate it. Thank you for everyone who's did a super chat and donated to the channel. It is appreciated, and we really do appreciate all your comments. And we'll see you soon.